What's up, YouTube? Today I'm going to be giving my take on this "Is obesity a choice?" debate you've seen making the rounds. I know a lot of you guys follow Bromley or Natural Hypertrophy or Bald Omni-Man, so you've probably seen it already. I want to weigh in because I think the whole question, "Is obesity a choice?" is the wrong question, and the way this debate is framed is kind of designed to suck you in and get you rooting for one of the teams and thereby miss the bigger picture. This is a video I'm responding to, but I'm not going to be posting a clip of it because Greg Doucette is a participant in the video, and boy, last week I tried to get Greg's sky high voice down to a normal decibel level, and that was just very difficult. And the resulting video made a lot of you guys unhappy with the sound. Greg's voice was too loud, mine was too quiet. A lot of your Jimmys ended up getting launched into near Earth orbit. We got Elon Musk up there with a Falcon rocket trying to get all you Jimmys back down from how loud Greg's voice was in comparison to mine. So we're not going to be having Greg Doucette in any more of my videos. And you guys have already seen the video anyway, I'm sure, so I don't need to post it. I'm just going to give my take on it after a brief summary. Before I get started, I just want to point out that I'm wearing the Illuminati shirt again. I actually have another cool one I want to show you guys from Rascal that they sent me. Appreciate it, guys. It's a Lord of the Rings theme one. I think it's really cool, but like this is the appropriate one for this episode, so I had to wear it again. If you guys want one, just use the link in the description, discount code Atlas. Anyway, let's get into it. I'm about to summarize the video. Okay, so most of you have probably already seen this video or at least segments of it, so you know what it's about, but I'm just going to share anyway so that we are all on the same page. This is basically a debate between fit men and fat men over whether obesity is a choice. That's how it's framed, that's how the video is titled. It starts off with a skinny guy who I guess is supposed to be fit. I don't know why he's in the fit camp. He looks skinny to me. But anyway, a skinny guy saying some, very unkind things about obese people, saying that obesity is unacceptable, that it's disgusting, that it should be shamed. And his basic take is that all an obese person has to do is count calories. He specifically says this. All they have to do is count calories and be disciplined, and they'll lose weight, so therefore, they should be shamed until they do that, right? That's what would be most helpful. And the other guys in the fit camp, you got Greg Doucette, some other big guy, some bodybuilder. They're far more polite, but they ultimately take the same basic stance. Ultimately, it is a choice. It is a matter of just being disciplined and, you know, counting calories and doing your cardio and whatnot, and you will lose weight. So, yes, obesity is a choice and it should not be accepted, right? On the other side, you have, I don't know if they want to be called body positivity advocates or fat acceptance advocates, whatever the case may be. Their take is that, in many cases, they've tried some of the things that these fit people are suggesting. It doesn't work as well for them. It's harder for them because of, genetics, what various other factors, and shaming them actually makes it harder for them to go to the gym. They make the point that it seems like we get shamed for being fat and for making the wrong choices, but then when we go in the gym, now we're promoting obesity, so we're kind of in a bad situation there. So what would be most helpful to us is just to have compassion and meet us where we are, and stop just telling us we're making the wrong choices, so that we can actually do what we need to do to be as healthy as possible, where we are, right? That's essentially how it's framed. And that's exactly why I'm making this video. I'm not just reacting because some video is making the rounds. I think it's important to talk about this because pretty much every mainstream discussion of obesity does fall into this exact same pattern. You get these exact same camps. You have on the one hand a camp that, let's be real, this is designed to appeal to right wingers, or it's if we map this onto politics, it's right wingers who basically make the case that it's all personal choice. You just need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, be disciplined, stop blaming other people, stop making excuses, and just do what you need to do, right? It's designed to appeal to right wingers. We know that, right? And on the other hand, you have people saying, oh, well, no, it's all these factors outside of our control. So we need to have compassion and, stop shaming people and just accept right. But, very importantly in that camp, genetics play a role, right? There are factors outside of our control, and that's why we need to accept it, right? So obviously that's designed to appeal to left wingers, right? I mean, it's pretty, this stuff is not really hard to pick up on, right? And they're both a trap. This is kind of a shell game, right? You know what a shell game is? It's an old street con where this con artist tries to get you to play a game. Hey, come on over, play this game. I've got three shells, and I'm going to put a ball under one while you watch, and then I'm going to move them around really quick, and you have to tell me which shell has the ball under it. If you guess right, I'll give you money, but if you guess wrong, you'll pay me money. And it's designed to seem like, hey, if I'm just good enough at following the shell, I'll be able to make some easy money by you know picking correctly, right? But of course, the trick is the con artist takes the ball out, so no matter what shell you pick, you're going to lose money, right? So just by picking a side, you lose, and that's exactly what the debate framed in this way is. Both sides have elements of truth to what they're saying, but these are trivially true things that distract from the real issue, right? And kind of in exactly the same way. Um, when we talk about obesity, we're not talking about a problem that's been with humans since the dawn of time. We're talking about, I mean, there have been obese humans probably since the dawn of time, or at least, throughout recorded history, but it's been a very rare thing, not really a problem. Maybe, a couple people have to deal with it. It's not been a huge issue. We're talking about something that's ballooned into arguably a bigger crisis than any war, even um, in the latter half of the 20th century, and certainly in the 21st century. It's this, enormous, no pun intended, ballooning, maybe a little bit pun intended, problem. And that's what we're talking about. So in both cases, both sides are basically explaining this through factors that have not really changed over the time frame that we're talking about where this became a problem, right? On the one hand, genetics are the main thing. Some people, it's absolutely true that some people have an easier time storing fat, harder time losing it. Some people just have a higher genetic propensity to store body fat than others. That's true. I'm not disagreeing with that. We know that to be true. Okay. That being said, like there's not really any reason to think that our genetics have changed over the last 100 years. I mean, I've never seen any evidence of it. It would take something fairly counterintuitive to actually cause that to happen. So it doesn't really make sense to cite genetics as a causative factor because people still had the same genes, back when we didn't have a problem with this whatsoever, right? Or at least presumably. There's no evidence that that has changed in any way, and I'm sure people are going to have some objections. Oh, well, this or that was different. Trust me, in I'm going to get there in this video. Towards the latter part, it'll make more sense when we get there. But on the other side, on the pull yourself up by your bootstraps, it's all a choice side. Well, what are we doing? We're attributing it all to decision making, to people basically being soft, being undisciplined, being weak willed. Well, guess what? There's not a shred of evidence that that has changed over the last 70 years either. We have these perceptions that people back in the day were these tough hard asses that it's misleading. I'm sure it's possible to be softer in some cases now than in history, but not that much. And not everybody back in the day was some kind of just really tough hard ass. Plenty of people were weak willed and not particularly disciplined back then. We hear about the heroes, we hear about the people that did get stuff done. We forget about the people that we never heard about because they never did anything. Right? There were just as many lazy people that weren't particularly didn't have a particularly high degree of agency back then too. Or if there were or weren't, whatever. We have not a shred of evidence that that has made such a dramatic change that we're in this pickle that we are in now, right? So we need something that has changed in the time frame of the problem that we're looking to explain. Well, what has? The food industrial complex or medical industrial complex or what have you. I mean, we like talk about the military industrial complex. We all know how that works. There's the exact same things going on in the in between the food industry, the medical industry, and academia, science, and government and regulatory institutions, right? There's a massive incentive in the food industry to have people, of course, not only eating more food in total, but also to be consuming foods that can be sold for higher profits, right? There's obviously a massive incentive for the medical industry to have more consumption of medical services, especially pharmaceuticals, which again can be sold for a massive profit margin, repeating sales, etc., right? And obviously those incentives are going to affect the scientific institutions that they need for legitimacy, and obviously also the government, just in the same way that the military industrial complex does. Do we have any evidence for that? And by the way, yeah, they did massively change food recommendations. We kind of know that, right? Do we have any evidence that this is actually happening? You're just talking about conspiracy theories. Well, I mean, I have the Illuminati shirt, but I'm going to come at you with evidence, right? So yeah, we have a ton of evidence that the food industry in the time frame that we're talking about, from basically the middle of the 20th century onward, was exerting significant influence on the scientific community, and through that, regular, the government and other, institutions promoting, dietary advice, right? So the first, probably the best example here, is the founding of the American Heart Association. And I'm going to link a source down in the description below. This isn't some kind of like weird, I don't know what website you get the conspiracy stuff on. I mean, this is really basic stuff. I'm going to link some kind of a respectable mainstream source down below. But anyway, the American Heart Association, which you guys know is it's a major, what is it? Would you call it an NGO, nonprofit, something in that realm? It was founded in the early, or I guess in the mid 1900s. Maybe I want to say the 40s. I want to say the 40s, but late 40s, but I could be wrong about that. You'll see it in the just read the text anyway. Um, they were founded as a result of an unprecedented increase in heart disease, which my understanding is it was more or less it was very uncommon in the 1800s and became much more common in the early part of the 20th century. It's obviously far more common now, but anyway, it was common enough to become a concern. Anyway, they were given seed money to start by Procter and Gamble, which you may know is a chemical company. Why is a chemical company concerned with the heart, right? Well, Procter and Gamble was selling cottonseed oil, which is essentially um, an industrial waste product. They were selling it as a food product by hydrogenating it and turning it into Crisco, which stands for crystallized cottonseed oil, and they were selling this as a replacement for lard or other animal based cooking fats, right? And so Procter and Gamble gave the American Heart Association seed money in exchange for promoting Crisco, which it's not even a seed oil; it's like straight up a trans fat product. And I don't care how what side of the aisle you are, we all kind of know now that trans fats are really really bad for us. Whether you think seed oils are okay or not okay, we know if you hydrogenate them and make them into trans fats, we all can agree, hold hands, sing kumbaya, trans fats are bad for us, right? And so that's what Procter and Gamble founded or helped start up the American Heart Association to promote. They did in fact promote Crisco, or an early trans fat product, as a healthy alternative to some of the animal based cooking oils and whatnot that had previously been in use. Right, saturated fat, obviously. Right. And more than that, they funded a bunch of research, a bunch of literature reviews and things like that really changed the scientific landscape, made it clear that that's kind of where the funding was at that time. It'd be hard to directly quantify exactly what effect that had on the scientific literature, but basically it let people know which side of the aisle the money was on. For an even more direct example of the food industry just directly bribing science, because with that it's like, okay, we know now it's important to disclose our source of funding so everybody can see what bias there might be. But I'll give you an example where we're not talking about bias, we're just talking about flat out bribes. So I believe it was in the 60s. It was probably the next decade. I believe 60s, early 70s. No, maybe early 70s. I'm going to link this down below. Again, we're going to give you like a mainstream source that nobody's going to say, "Oh, that's crazy conspiracies." I think I've read. I think there's even an NPR article on this. But anyway, the was it Sugar Research Council? You read the article, you'll see. They just directly, flat out, bribed some Harvard scientists, prestigious Harvard scientists, to publish an article. I believe it was the New England Journal of Medicine they published it in, um, basically blaming saturated fat, falsely blaming saturated fat for negative health effects that were actually caused by sugar. And they were, of course, doing this because a lot of people are getting less healthy. Think we have some problems. People are looking at sugar. People are saying, "Hey, should we be cutting down on our sugar?" And obviously, the sugar industry doesn't want that. So, like, they have to find someone else to blame. And especially given that with Ansel Keys, with the push against saturated fat by the American Heart Association, which was, of course, founded by the competitors to saturated fat, trans fats. Saturated fat is already, it's already getting a bad rap. So let's just pin the damage that sugar's doing on saturated fat, right? And that was the logic. And so they just straight up paid for, false research demonizing saturated fat. So I'm not telling you all this to tell you that one particular ingredient is to blame for the obesity epidemic. I'm not saying that it's all sugar or that it's trans fats, although I think we can all kind of agree that trans fats are not helpful at all, or even seed oils, right? What I'm doing is showing you fairly uncontroversial evidence. It's a matter of historical record that the food industry was influencing, science at the time when saturated fat and cholesterol first began to be demonized. You can see the chain from industry money to science to government recommendations and dietary recommendations from the government and other organizations that people place their trust in. Right? I mean, there's a direct chain there, and this is just what we've caught. I mean, how many other cases were there where the food industry you know tried to do the same thing that happened in the sugar case, and was never caught for it? We don't know. I seriously doubt that these were two just completely isolated incidents. And I mean, there are others I could go into, but I don't want this video to get too long. But we have some evidence that's happened. I've never seen any satisfactory explanation from any like science-based nutritionist on you know how you know explaining that we've corrected the problem, and those were isolated incidents. Here's why those happened, and they can never happen again. Here's what we've done to correct it. Like, there's really no reason to think it's not going. The problem isn't more widespread. But anyway, it's not about any one ingredient that they added. It's about what they started to demonize, which ended up being red meat, eggs, right? Saturated fat, cholesterol started to get demonized, and that took out red meat and eggs from people's diet. Why is that a problem? Well, if you're trying to control your appetite or lose weight, you need foods that are satiating per calorie, but also foods that, you know, you don't hate and can eat long term without getting sick of them. So something that's palatable, right? The problem is when you demonize red meat, when you demonize eggs, when you demonize, all that stuff, you take out for a lot of people a whole lot of what fits into that category. If you're looking for something that people can eat and get satiated by without eating an excess of calories, but are also happy to eat. I mean, steak, burger, eggs, omelets, a lot of what fits into that category, that sweet spot that you kind of need for realistic, sustainable weight loss, is in that category that's been demonized, right? You can find foods that are satiating. Still, like, you might fill up on a bunch of greens and chicken breast, but that's not necessarily so palatable. So people are going to have issues sticking to that diet. Or you can find foods that may be palatable, but they're not going to tend to fill you up. So you're going to have to be, counting calories, and you're going to have to stop short of being full and just deal with being hungry if you want to lose weight. Using these nutritional recommendations. If you're trying to lose weight based on the food pyramid, you're in for a rough time. You're either stuck with things that you don't want to eat long term, and you have to be really disciplined to stick with it, or you're going to be stuck with things that aren't filling you up. So you're just going to be hungry all the time and very unhappy. And unfortunately, that's unrealistic for a lot of people. Um, and is the solution to just say those people are undisciplined? No, because there's a much easier solution, which is just to you know do what works a lot better, which is to eat things that are nice to eat and also will fill you up. So we have to use a lot less discipline, right? If that can work for a much greater percentage of the population, than than expecting everyone to rely on discipline. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, it's not the red meat so much because the food industry created a bunch of hyper palatable foods, and that's the issue. Now we just have like really palatable sources of calories, and that's the problem. Well, there's always been hyper palatable food. I mean, if you look at the 50s, I mean, staples of like Americana are like, drive-through diners that have, big milkshakes. I mean, soda counters, soda fountains. Do you see soda fountains places you just go and just get a bunch of sugar? No, like not anymore. But soda fountains were, kind of a staple of the 50s culture, right? Um, so I mean, I think a root beer float tastes pretty good. I don't know that Cheetos are necessarily that much more palatable than a root beer float, right? So it's not like they've never had treats. And I mean, we've had obviously we've increased our consumption of sugar, but we've still had plenty of sugary stuff, going back a long time. And people are going to say, oh, well, now it's that people don't exercise anymore. To an extent, yeah. I mean, there were definitely some people back in the day who did quite a lot of exercise, and that would certainly explain a lot of why they wouldn't run into issues with obesity. But there have also been tons of sedentary people um, for quite a long time. I mean, we've lived in a fairly advanced society for a long time that has division of labor, so not everybody was out in the coal mines, and it's certainly not realistic to say that everybody in the 50s was, living in a mud hut, milking their own cow, working hard in the fields all day. You had a lot of office workers back in the 50s, office workers with access to root beer floats and whatnot. And well, some of them, not all of them were, with chiseled abs, but we certainly didn't see people, who were 400 pounds getting their feet amputated due to diabetes at that time. And I think the change is what we're recommended to eat. I mean, do people at that time, it was known it's always going to be hard to say exactly who knew what back in history, like exactly how well known was this. But it was fairly common knowledge that meat and eggs worked well for fat loss at that time. I mean, one popular this is kind of a crazy thing, but one of the most popular diet books in the 50s was called The Drinking Man's Diet, which basically said if you just like to drink and so you needed to have a diet that allowed you to drink, you could just basically you should basically eat meat and eggs. It was essentially a low carb diet, which recommended a bunch of meat, eggs, stuff like that, plus drinking low carb alcohol. I don't recommend that. I'm not trying to tell you guys to go drink alcohol, but that that was a very that sold a lot of copies back at that time. A decade later, you had Ben Sharonda talking about steak and eggs is the easiest way to lose fat. All the bodybuilders going into the golden era, they I think they stopped mid golden era, but going into the golden era, bodybuilders knew you're cutting, okay, do do meat and eggs. So it was um, going back even further. If you guys have ever heard of a Salisbury steak, that was invented by a gentleman in the 1800s who was essentially looking for a cure for corpulence. That's what they called it back in the day, and basically the cure ended up just being eat a bunch of meat, right? So who knew what? It's hard to say, but the idea that meat and eggs were good for fat loss was fairly prevalent, you know, in the early part of the 20th century, certainly the mid-century. And of course, that changed in the latter half of the 20th century when now meat and eggs are being demonized. If you want to be healthy, that's the last thing you should eat. Steer clear of those, and in fact, steer clear of fat altogether, especially saturated fat. And that at that time, the prevalence of diets like that, and simply using meat and eggs as a tool for fat loss kind of went out the window because now when people do want to lose fat, now that they're being told that's the opposite of what they should do. So that gets into one criticism that we have that I know I'm going to get of this is that, oh, well, we have evidence that people don't follow nutritional recommendations anyway, so you can't blame those for the obesity epidemic. Well, okay, they don't always have to. I mean, people have always eaten stuff they know that's not good for them. I eat stuff I know that's not good for them. For me, I have all sorts of stuff that I know that's not good for me, not that uncommonly, right? So people eat stuff that they know isn't recommended to them all the time, right? What matters is when they know they have a problem and things are getting rough and they know they have to fix it, what do? And that's kind of the make or break moment. You might, as long as things are going well, you might stop at the drive through to get a root beer float or an egg cream or whatever sweet you have in the 50s. But then you get a little bit too overweight. You realize you have a problem. You need to fix it. You can find the information on what you need to do to fix your problem fairly easily. Now, fast forward to the 2000s, you're being told, um, you have the same issue. Well, now you're supposed to cut out the red meat, really limit your servings of red meat. That's bad for you. You're supposed to eat based on the food pyramid, a ton of heart healthy whole grains, which by the way, uh, if you look at the food pyramid, if you map the food pyramid onto a diagram of which ingredients have the highest profit margins, it'd be other than the top part with desserts, it'd be almost perfect. Grains are incredibly profitable because you can repurpose them and package them into something else and sell them for a massive markup. They're very cheap to manufacture, and I mean they're still cheap food when you sell them, but the difference is massive. You're talking about a huge margin, even though everything is cheap, but there's still a big markup between what it costs to produce and what you can actually sell it for. Especially when you consider that there are subsidies for a lot of them. That's why corn is used for all sorts of silly things that corn doesn't really make sense in, right? I mean, that's why we're feeding cattle corn when I mean cows can just eat grass. But if if you're subsidized to produce corn and whatnot, then I guess it makes sense, right? Or soybeans, right? People always talk about, oh, well, a lot of soybeans are used to, feed animals. Well, yeah, because they're subsidized, so it's cheap. Would that be the case otherwise? Anyway, we're getting on a tangent here. Bottom line, meat is not as profitable to produce just because it is a more expensive thing. You just can't make the consumer pay that much more than what it costs to produce. It's just not as profitable. um, Other than in a field, in a few niche applications like high-end restaurants, right? It's just the profit margin potential is not there. Same thing with seed oils, right? This is basically an industrial waste product that you can, package into a food and sell at a massive markup, right? Uh, anyway, where was I going with that? Right, so that's my case for why nutritional recommendations are essentially the issue that's caused obesity or that's caused the rise in obesity, right? And again, it's not people are going to want to shy away from that and say it's all the hyper palatable foods, but again, it's not palatability that's the issue. Like there was plenty of palatable food back in the day. It's the fact that satiating food that you can eat realistically and reasonably for a long period of time is being demonized, right? Yeah, it's not an issue that you have access to root beer floats, which are, in my opinion, tastier than flaming hot Cheetos. It's not an issue that you have root beer floats. If you know, hey, you do pack on too many pounds, okay, we're just going to go on Vince Gironda's steak and eggs for a while and we'll fix it, right? But now, you go, you know, eat God knows what with very little steak. You're either, I mean, you're basically stuck doing the bodybuilder diet where you're eating, lots of grilled chicken breast and greens for your satiation, which I guess if you're disciplined you can make work. So that's, I mean, they're kind of right, the discipline can work, but why are we using discipline if we don't have to, right? Or you can just eat whatever you want, or not whatever you want, but you can eat things that taste better, but just be hungry, right? But neither one of those is necessary. So if we stick to the nutritional recommendations, you're going to be in one of those camps. You're going to be either unsatiated or you're going to be eating things you don't like. And some people can power through that. Some people can be disciplined, but that's not going to be realistic for everyone. And I think we should have compassion for people and we shouldn't just throw people under the bus for not being disciplined enough to do something in an unnecessarily hard way when there's an easier way they could be doing it. So instead of blaming them for not being disciplined enough to do everything the hard way and gatekeeping health, oh, you have to do everything the hard way and be this, this disciplined. Um, Maybe we could just try to make it easier for them. So I think the compassionate thing to do is not to tell them, "Oh, it's okay that you're obese. That's fine. You can be as obese as, you just stay that way. You're fine. You're good the way you are." It's to just say, "Hey, here's an easier way." thank me later. And again, I'm not saying if you eat red meat and eggs, you'll magically lose weight. It's still going to require a calorie deficit, obviously. Some people may even still have to count calories. A lot of people will be able to just wing it. It just makes it easier. So whereas the way we're being taught now, like a large portion of the population cannot control their weight, can't stop from being obese. If we just gave people better advice and just told them, hey, these are the foods that are going to help you the most, it might be only 25% of the population can't manage it. And even those would probably at least not get as morbidly obese, right? Um, so yeah, so that's pretty much my take on that. And yeah, I think a lot of people now are so black-pilled because when they do try to do what they're told that they should do, it's really hard. It doesn't seem to work. So then they just kind of give up on the whole thing. And again, come into just, oh, well, I'm going to accept this. I have tried. I followed I did what my registered nutritionist told me. I made a good faith effort. Clearly diets don't work. Well, okay. You follow what your, your registered dietitian told you. Like in every case, when I see somebody on social media talking about, you know, losing fat isn't realistic for me. I can't do it. Their justification for why they couldn't do it, they got with a dietitian in every case, or they are a dietitian themselves. So I mean, we know these people are using bad strategies. I have not once seen anyone who is in the paleo, carnivore, just like I don't even care if you do any of that. I'm not even trying to get you to do any of those strict diets. Just eat the foods that help you manage calories. Red meat and eggs. You can eat like I don't. I'm not a strict paleo guy. I eat all sorts of stuff that's not paleo, but I can get away with it because the foundation of my diet is something that satiates me easily, and then I get excited for it. So it works out really well. Just eat the stuff that's going to help you keep the calories off, right? That's all I'm saying. Anyway, so obesity is ultimately the result of choices. I mean, you can't get obese without picking up the fork and putting food in your mouth, or more accurately, probably picking up the soda, or whatever the case may be. You do have to make the choice that ultimately leads to obesity. But some people can make those choices and not get obese, and some people will get obese due to genetics. So both of those are true, but they're not helpful. Are we really going to blame somebody for following bad advice and then it doesn't work out for them? No, we blame the person giving the bad advice, right? That's why if you look at Dante's Inferno, it was very low level of hell was reserved for people who gave bad advice. It was, I think, what, eighth level. So that's pretty low. That's like lower than murderers, and a lot of people who've committed some pretty serious crimes are still at a higher level of hell in Dante's conceptualization than people who give bad advice. Bad advice is like one of the absolute worst. Not quite as bad as like literally Satan, but like pretty bad. So, and yeah, I mean, I think that's completely fitting. Like, we should not be blaming. I think the acceptance folks kind of have a point when they say that the, you know, personal choice camp is victim blaming. They are. It's just um, they're not blaming the right. They're not blaming the right. I guess they're not putting the blame in the proper place, because again, the kind of fat acceptance, it's not our fault camp, it's not our fault camp kind of maps onto the political left, right? So they don't want to blame the scientific establishment, they don't want to blame the government, they don't want to blame all these people who they're for whatever reason allied with. Oh, we need to trust the science, right? But I mean, the reality is um, they're correct about victim blaming, they're just picking the wrong culprit. And I think in their own way, the wannabe right wing tough guys who just say, it's all personal choice, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Note that these guys, they're pull yourselves up by your bootstraps on everything except hormones. They're all on TRT or something. So when it comes to low T, they don't just rub some dirt in it and walk it off. That's one thing to point out. But anyway, the system the system loves the debate to be framed this way. It's protected in both cases. You have a bunch of tough guys on TRT talking about personal choice. Wonderful, that corrals those people. You have a bunch of people talking about, oh, let's just accept this. Wonderful. We have evidence. We have evidence that the food industry is now paying um, body positivity influencers to promote overconsumption of food and promote being anti-diet, promote not even trying anymore. We have evidence of this, right? But the other camp is protecting the establishment in more or less the same way, just from the other perspective. So ultimately, both sides of this equation protect the system from accountability, right? I mean, the way this is set up is, heads the system wins, tails the people lose, right? And, you might not initially think that the personal responsibility crowd, is on that side because they kind of present themselves as very right wing. But the extremes of personal responsibility and accountability that we often see on social media, I mean, it can come off as being, it can come off as being independent and whatnot. But in reality, a lot of what it ends up being is just like simping for the system. Don't blame anything outside yourself. Like everything is totally on you and your fault. So okay, I mean there are a lot of cases where you need to take personal responsibility and do the things that you have control of over, but I mean there are a ton of things out there that are outside your control that are in fact being done, to you or at you or affecting you by the system. And I mean I honestly wonder, whether some of these you know people who emphasize excessive personal responsibility, are just out there to kind of corral, people who might in some ways be independent thinkers into just not criticizing the system and just being, kind of being system simps, you know what I mean? But anyway, this video has run really long. Um, I hope you guys found it helpful. I think this is something really important to talk about. And in a lot of cases, when we have debates like this, it's not about which side you pick, it's about rejecting the frame altogether. You know what I mean? I think that's where the truth lies in a lot of these cases. You'll see these pitched battles, and you're supposed to pick a camp and root for it, and your side scores a point, you cheer like a football game. That's kind of what electoral politics is, to be honest. You're supposed to just pick a side. But anyway, yeah. Typically, when you reject the frame, that's where the truth lies. Hope you guys found this entertaining, enjoyable. I'm kind of just making this as the second bonus video. I already put up one video, but this is in the it's in the feeds right now, so it's topical. So I want to just go ahead and address this while I have the chance. All right, guys, thanks for watching.